Hello, and welcome back to Goalie Interference, the one, the only. DailyFaceoff.com's Mike McKenna is here. What is up?
Hi. No, I don't know what's up. I mean, we probably have some stuff to talk about, I guess, but holy cow.
Well,
trade deadline's
I think
real.
we should start the same way. I think we should start the same way that Kelly McCrimmon began his press conference today.
Okay.
And that is beginning by talking about the signing of Christoph Sedov.
Sure. That was clearly point number one on the most important things to talk about. By the way, Ken, this has been one hell of a day and hell of a couple of days. I think I'm going to have a sip here.
Welcome to the world of covering hockey during trade deadline week. It is something else. Sometimes you sleep through the trades. I've done that.
I mean, I woke up a couple nights ago. It was 2 days ago, I guess, and I woke up in the morning and Korpisalo's been traded to the Kings. No surprise. Yeah. 0% surprised by that. And then I found out Quick's going back the other direction on that. And I went, whoa, heads up here, heads up. Because that was seismic, man. And we can get into that if we want, but that's kind of the arching point. This stuff happens middle of the night. It happens all different times, man. And it's hard to be ready for it. And especially now working in media, like I'm waking up and just trying to catch my breath sometimes. Right. And
and then you're immediately expected to have full opinions on exactly what happens. And that's part of the job. That's what we're supposed to do. That's why we prepare the entire year to be able to have those opinions. So here we are. I do think that we have to make sure at some point we don't lose sight of one of, if not the best games the Golden Knights have played all season last night. So I'll be honest, that game gave me some feels, Mike. That game gave me some belief that I haven't necessarily had for quite some time. But I do think we obviously have to start with, since we last did a goalie interference episode, there were 3 trades. They got Ivan Barbashev for the first-round prospect of Zach Dean. They got Teddy Blueger for a 3rd-round pick, and I think, was that the one Deliberatore went in? I don't know. Either way, Deliberatore went out at some point.
Along with a 3rd-round pick, went back the other direction.
Correct, to Blueger. Yep. And then they got Jonathan Quick today for a 7th and Michael Hutchinson. Shout out to Michael Hutchinson. Sorry, I forgot to read your name in the press release, and I tweeted it without his name. I apologize. My eyes went straight over that one. I'll let
Michael Hutchinson's going to need a couple. Michael Hutchinson's going to need a couple apologies, not just from you.
Yeah. No, I think there's probably ones coming up higher up. Dealer's choice. Which one you want to start with?
Let's just go with the big one right off the bat. Okay. I mean, I'd love to go in sequential order, but the Golden Knights went out and got a goaltender, and they got Jonathan Quick. And for me, it says a couple of things that are pretty obvious. I mean, first off, when Logan Thompson got hurt, a friend of a friend, I heard that he's pretty banged up. Now, that can mean a lot of different things, right? I mean, to me, it meant 4 to 6 guaranteed. But right now, I think the big concern is he really going to be healthy and capable this season? We don't know that. We have no idea, no clue.
Yeah, they intimated today that it'll be a yes. I mean, they pretty strongly came out and said the plan is regular season this year.
And I would have thought that. That's what I think too. But I think whatever has hurt him makes you worry that he could re-injure that somehow. That's my thought. Okay.
That's because fair. Yep.
You know, if you're going to put all your eggs in with Laurent Brossoit, who's hurt, which caught me off guard, who was really good, it just shows they don't trust Adin Hill at all to win a cup. Okay. So that's just plain, period.
We'll debate that. I don't think it's to win a cup. I think it's to win games to get them into the playoffs. But go ahead.
Whatever the case may be here. I don't think this team's even worried about. I think they're just thinking cup, and because here's why.
I disagree. Should we just go into that?
No. You need to let me talk here. Okay. You don't get Jonathan Quick, who has been outplayed by his goalie partner for 5 straight years, different goalie partners. Last year was the one exception for the first 3 months of the season, and then he fell off a cliff. And yeah, that series against Edmonton went to Game 7. He got yanked from like 2 of those games. Okay, I covered one of them. Ugly. But that's how his game goes. He'll have an unbelievable game where he's feeling it and then just get shelled and pulled. The reason being is he has no structure. He has no modern technique. He's over reliant on things that make him very vulnerable. I wrote an article about it that's on my Twitter page. It's up at Daily Faceoff. This was in 2021. I wrote an article on how he had not evolved. And there's been no technical evolution since. He's playing street hockey out there, right? It's paddle down everything. It's low and wide. It's tiny. There's a reason why his save percentage is an 876. And his numbers are in the bottom. Like, honestly, the only goaltender that's probably been worse in the NHL, and this is just real talk, man. The only goalie that's probably been worse this year is Elvis Merzlikins. And it pains me to say that because I think Jonathan Quick was probably the greatest American goalie of all time. Like 2 Stanley Cups, Conn Smythe, like unbelievable. But he didn't keep up with the Joneses when it came to technique, and it's shown. And for whatever reason, though, he has kept this reputation of still being this big money goaltender that can just turn it on whenever he wants. And that's not how it works today. You can't just turn it on and be great. That doesn't work. The numbers bear it out. Like all my eye tests that I've been warning people about the last 5 years has completely come true. And so I think that there's still this thought, well, he's got experience. He's won a cup. If we can't have LT or two, if we can't have LT, we got him he's our ace in the hole. And to that, I say there's a list of about 6 goalies I would have rather had in the NHL. And I'm talking goalies in the American League ahead of Jonathan Quick. And here's the reasoning. Okay. I talk to NHL goalie coaches all the time. I had about half of them in the league. I have a relationship with a lot of them. And we all in that grouping think one thing. And then I talk to people in LA that are close to situation. And they all think one thing. The only reason Jonathan Quick wasn't waived this year instead of Cal Peterson is because he's Jonathan Quick. And you can't do that to a franchise icon. Well, it reached a head where they had to trade him to make money work. Now, I don't know what those conversations were like between Rob Blake and Jonathan Quick. I hope they were very cordial. I hope he knew in advance that he could be traded. He was reportedly, according to our Frank Siravelli and the reporting he did at Daily Faceoff, very unhappy about being traded. So do we get a motivated guy to Vegas? Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about that. But motivation doesn't make you a better goalie. It just means you're angry. And so we don't live in a world where Herb Brooks walks in, motivates you guys, and you play better. That's not how it works. You need foundation. You need structure. You need a game plan. So you had a goaltender that couldn't be waived. You couldn't send him down. You eventually had to trade him. It's the end of the line. But there's still this belief amongst NHL GMs that he can somehow pull a rabbit out of his hat. And here we are. And I'm telling you, I would rather have I could go down the list of goalies that I would have gone for ahead of him. But it's simply because he's won 2 Stanley Cups a decade ago and 8 years ago is the only reason why he was the guy for the Vegas Golden Knights. And I thought it was a short-sighted move. I don't think it was the right play if they needed a goaltender. I thought Jonas Korpisalo, boy, that would have made a bit more sense if you're going to do it. I thought Cam Talbot is a steady goalie that would have been A-okay for this club. And you can keep going. Thomas Greiss. Anton Hudobin got pushed aside for pennies in a trade from Dallas to Chicago. Anton Hudobin's been pretty good in the American League when he's been motivated, from what I heard. They said he was unbelievable at times. Alex Nedeljkovic is hiding out there, who should be in the NHL, but he's not. He didn't have a great start to the year. He was better than Quick. None of them were the answer. It's purely because Quick has won 2 Stanley Cups 8 years and a decade ago. And here's the thing, Ken. He's going to walk into this organization. He's going to go out there and play for Bruce Cassidy. And against those shitty teams, and then when they play well, he's going to look good. They're going to make him look good because they've made Adin Hill look really good. Adin Hill did his best to give that game away last night. Okay? Like, you get the shot that he can't control from the point that drops at his feet that Svechnikov puts in the net. You get a harmless shot from the corner from the outside that he goes VH on the post and it nearly sneaks in. He played that off like it was nothing. That nearly went in the net from just way off to the side. You probably don't even remember it, but it was a goalie warning sign. Long and the short of it is that this team's got a lot of goalies, but they got even more question marks. And so, do I think they were right to make a play for a goalie given the injury concerns? Yes. I just think they got the wrong guy. I don't know any other team that would have gone for this move. That's my piece.
So with where we're at, I I'm on board with pretty much all of that. I'm very happy that you poo-pooed the motivation thing before I had to do it, because it's a bunch of malarkey. It's ridiculous to believe that all of a sudden, because Jonathan Quick is angry, that he's suddenly going to not be the guy that he's been for 5 seasons. It's ridiculous. And like every time I read it, I just want to smack myself in the face. But let's move on from that. Let's go to, where is this headed? That's what I want to look at now. So we don't know how long Laurent Brossoit is going to be out. I'm going to do a little reading between the lines here that I don't know what everyone else makes of it, but I found it interesting that he's the one that was the guy handing the Elvis wig over to Eichel yesterday, when he goes from in the lineup playing well to now, we want you to be kind of part of this. It leads me to believe he's out for a while, because I think if he was just a day or two, a week or two, it wouldn't really be that big of a deal. Why is the third goalie that guy when Mark Stone's in there? Either way, whatever. I think he's going to be out a while. I think Thompson's going to be out a while. By Thompson a while, I don't think March is all that likely in play for him to play games. I think we're looking at April on Thompson. So yes, you have all these games. In these games, assuming it's going to be the 2 guys that they have, it's going to be Hill, it's going to be Quick. Obviously, the goal is Hill to be the starter for as long as he can be that starter. Inevitably,
you think Hill's going to play over Jonathan Quick?
I do. At the start.
I disagree.
At the start. Well, interesting. All right, so then we'll keep going from there. So either way. Yeah. All right, so say we're half and half split.
That's a guess, though. We can go past that. That's just a guess. So let's go past that. Continue on your train of thought.
Do you expect Jonathan Quick to be so bad in the Golden Knights goal that he does not believe that he deserves to be the starter?
No.
Unlikely,
I also think that
right?
he still thinks he should be the starter in LA.
Correct. He
went to LA last summer and asked for a 2-year extension after the seasons that he'd had. Like, I think there's a level of self-awareness missing here.
So he now is here. He now is going to look at Adin Hill, and whether he's deemed the starter right away or he has to physically take it from him, Adin Hill's going to open the door for him. Whether you're right or I'm right, Adin Hill's going to open the door for him. The door will be open. Adin Hill can be a better goalie than him. The door is going to be open. He's going to step through that door for at least a second. Like, here or there, he's going to step through that door. Then you're going to get Thompson back off of all this time off. You're going to get Brossoit back off of this time off. And you're inevitably going to go into the most important games of your season with 3, possibly 4, if Hill plays well, goalies that believe they're the starter. What happens? How do you even sort this out? Because you just said 8 minutes ago, you can't waive Jonathan Quick because he's Jonathan Quick. And for the Golden Knights to swoop in and be this savior of Jonathan Quick to keep him out of deathly Columbus. Columbus isn't that bad. To keep him from having to go there, right? Closer to his house. You're not going to want to healthy scratch him. You're probably going to want to make him your backup. Who makes the roster when they play important games when all 4 are healthy?
When it all shakes out, if all 4 are healthy, it's Logan Thompson and Jonathan Quick. Whether that's right or wrong, that's what it's going to be. And that's, I mean, as soon as this deal went down, I knew somebody was going to get traded, and I didn't think it would be Adin Hill because they need a functioning goaltender. And Hill has, listen, you know, we've talked about this a million times. Hill has won them games this year. He has. I mean, he has gotten the winning games. He has. But, you know, there's just a lot going on here, man. And that's the hard part for this team. And I think that a lot of this move was just predicated upon they had all this cap space, and it's like, well, we might as well use it, you know. And it's like it's kid at 7-Eleven, dude. Give him $100 and say don't spend money.
You're not wrong.
You're
absolutely not wrong.
But and by the way, I don't know what bill of goods they sold Michael Hutchinson to come to Vegas, but I can guarantee that guy's unhappy because he came and was basically treated as a spare part, got no chance, then
barely got AHL chances.
Yeah.
Barely even got AHL chances, Mike. When he's just stepping in, not even just to be the backup.
If you're a veteran guy like him and you sign that deal and you get a lease in Vegas and you're there, like, I can't imagine what they told him. I can't fathom it, what they told him. They didn't say, hey, you're probably not going to be in the lineup in the American League, but we want to give you a contract. And then to deal you at the deadline, like, I mean, that's tough, man. Like, so in any case, and here's the thing. I know how management works, dude. I've been around it for a long time. Management's like, he's a minor league guy, whatever. He should know it was coming. And it's his birthday. Even better.
Which they tweeted and then deleted after they traded him.
You're right. I mean, happy birthday.
That's just weird.
After, like, it still is what it is.
It's still his birthday. You could still wish him happy birthday.
God.
I'd like a tweet if they wish Vadim happy birthday. Go ahead.
So, I mean, I think I've pretty much said my piece on this. I think Jonathan Quick's going to come in and play some good games because they play great defense in front of their goalies most of the time when they're healthy, which they have, and he's going to look pretty good. But when the chips are down, man, you can't trust him anymore. And I would encourage people to just go read my piece at Daily Faceoff. Like, I'm not doing this for the clicks. I think I do a better job explaining it because I actually have video that shows it in that piece. I'll take the clicks, but I have video to back up what I'm explaining in that piece. That helps a lot there. So it's just a lot going on, man. Now these other deals, okay. So we probably, first though, Ken, I think we do need to make sure that everybody knows.
I was just about to do that. I was about to tell you that the other deals we're going to talk about after I tell you that every episode of Goalie Interference, including this one, which is fiery so far and expects to be continued to be fiery, is brought to you by the Jimerson Law Firm. The Jimerson Law Firm is one of Las Vegas's preeminent law firms specializing in high-stakes business, civil, and family litigation. When winning matters, or when I need to buy Jim Jimerson dinner because he wasn't eating and I might as well buy it, I'm not going to let him buy it for me. Seek out the Jimerson Law Firm and seek out Jim Jimerson. I did that. That was fantastic. We had a nice dinner. Brought me to a nice place. I forget what the name of the place was.
I need to hop on a plane and come see you guys, man.
Yeah, you do. So there's two other deals, and I think we can. I don't think that there's all that much to talk about in regard to the players. I think we know kind of what the players are. You know what Ivan Barbashev is. I don't know necessarily. We'll get into it over the course of the next 4 weeks, probably whether he actually fits on a top line in the Stanley Cup contending team. We'll see. He was better last night. Good pass. Shout out to Brent Burns for fucking up like he always does in that building, making life easy on Barbashev. He's what he is. I don't think he's a massive scorer. I don't think they gave up all that much to get him. They gave up a former first-round pick. He hasn't even played professionally yet. There's a chance that one blows up in your face. There's also a chance that one looks real good because that kid may never actually play. So we'll see where that one is. Third-round pick for Teddy Blueger. Teddy Blueger is effectively a defensive specialist. Teddy Blueger is not expected to score. He literally scored a goal a couple of days ago, and it looked like it was the first time he had ever scored in his life. He was that excited about that goal. Shout out to Teddy Blueger. He's an awesome dude. I talked to him today. Seems like a really cool dude. But give up a third-round pick for him. They're depth pieces. I think they're either you consider it a depth piece in your top six, and then you consider it a depth piece in your bottom six. I don't think that these are massive game-changing movements. This isn't all of a sudden we're like, they can score now. We don't have either of that. So just wrap the whole thing in a package. Give me the entire trade deadline. How much better are they? How much do you feel like they gave up to get that much better? And are they closer to winning a Stanley Cup now than they were the last time we did Goalie Interference?
I think that these moves really don't put them any closer to a Stanley Cup when it comes down to it. I really like Ivan Barbashev, but I don't think he's above a third-line player in the NHL for most teams, realistically. I've watched him for a long time in St. Louis. I've seen him be a dynamic force, but he was only at his best when he was playing with Pavel Buchnevich and Vladimir Tarasenko. For whatever reason, that was a pretty magic combo. You had three guys speaking the same language out there. It worked. Now, when he's engaged in hitting and physical, he can make a big difference. And that is an element that the Golden Knights haven't had beyond Paul Cotter. And Paul Cotter's not going to run anybody through the boards. I mean, Barbashev broke Sam Girard's sternum last year in the playoffs. And I was in the building for that hit, and it was a take your breath away moment when he did it. But he's not a shooter. That's the thing. He's more of a passer, and he's a smart player. He knows how to get open. But to me, he's not the guy that's going to really up your scoring. Now, the price they paid for him, I agree with you on Dean. Like, Dean to me was, his stat line's been pretty good, but he's also been, looks like he's been hurt. He hasn't played as much, right? So
multiple times, yeah.
You know, you're looking at potentially damaged goods even in that way. But, you know, St. Louis must have seen enough in him to think, hey, we'd rather have this than a pick. I don't know, whatever. So
well, it's risky. It's always risky to sell a player in that position because he hasn't played professionally. Right. There is a very good chance that his game actually does translate to the AHL. It does then translate to the NHL. It's in my opinion, it can be riskier to trade a player like him, especially that was a first-round pick, than to do a second-round pick and let them trade the player, because we attach that player now to the Golden Knights. When he scores goals, it will get pushed back on Barbashev's 22 games in Vegas. That's what makes that risky.
I agree. I look at Barbashev and I don't think he's going to make a big difference on the stat line. He did have a nice pass to Eichel last night, forehand backhand, find a new lane, but like, there's a lot of guys that can do that in the NHL, and that was after, I don't know what Slavin was doing in the offensive zone, spinning all over the joint.
And that was pretty wild. Just sells out. Yeah.
The whole thing was, well, that's Burnsy for you. But now the Blueger deal is just, the Blueger deal to me is, first off, it makes me wonder how hurt Nick Waugh is. Are they just looking for depth here? What's your game plan? Right. Because
so we got a little bit of data on that today. Sorry to interrupt you there. We got a little bit of data on that, which is last night it really started to sound like Cassidy was saying they need to replace things that Waugh does. We need to replace the penalty killing. We need to replace the 6-on-5, whatever. That's kind of what it sounded like. And we're kind of feeling like, this is not looking good. He kind of walked it back a little bit today, and then McCrimmon came in, and note, McCrimmon's not always the most honest in regards to we can take his word and say that's happening historically, but he kind of said the idea of Blueger is it's going to allow us more freedom to move Nick Waugh around. And when you do make lineups, it does make sense to say, well, Nick Waugh could be in Amadio's spot. Nick Waugh can be in the current Barbashev spot. Like there are reasons to believe that Nick Waugh could potentially move around. It sounded like he's not that far out. I'll say this. His jersey was in his locker yesterday. It is very rare that we see a jersey in a player's locker at morning skate when they are not at least close. Usually it means they're actually physically stepping on the ice. That seemingly did not happen. Don't know why, but that did not happen. But that usually means they're close. Maybe there was a setback. I don't know. But that deal, the Blueger deal, was pretty far along. I don't think that it's going to be much more than this month at the worst.
Yeah, so that was one aspect to it, but Nick Waugh needs to play center, man. That's where he belongs. And
he's not anymore.
And the fourth line to me wasn't very effective last night. I thought they were the one line. It kind of made me nervous at times. I wonder if Keegan Colasar shuffles out of the lineup. You know, when you get to playoffs and you're starting to think like, okay, we put Barbashev in the lineup. We need to have that added dimension. Who can come out? It's just one name I think of. But Blueger, like, here's the thing about Blueger. I have raved about Blueger before because the Pittsburgh penalty kill sucked at the start of the year until he came back. Like, it was terrible. And then he came back and it was great. Now, the weird part, though, is that Vegas' penalty kill is fine. It's good, right? Like, and they don't take penalties anyway. So like, to me, there's not a real reason. I just didn't understand. There's just not a reason to pick up a penalty kill specialist, because I know Blueger had a career year last season, but like, he just hasn't. Go watch. Like, I wish you guys had this program called Instat where you can watch a guy try to score, and he has not been able to score this year. It just doesn't happen. And so that's the one I just think I felt like that was a move where they said, we've got cap space. We need to use it. We're going to get this guy. And for a third round pick, I thought that's a pretty high price for me. Like, I didn't think that was a great deal to give up a third rounder for him. And I mean, Delibatori was just dumping off a contract at this point. He played in the ECHL this year, and which is interesting because he signed early out of school. If I remember, he was there for 3 years and really good.
He did.
And I remember when he came to the A and looked pretty good, but it never was able to grab on. And so
it's been in Savannah a lot this year too.
Yeah, great city. But I don't know. The Blueger deal to me, I'm not sure where it's going to fit. It does give him depth, but I didn't like giving up a 3rd round pick for that. I didn't like giving up a 7th round pick for for Quick, honestly.
Should have been free. It should have been free. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really matter.
I don't think LA could have. I don't think LA could have gotten a pick for Quick all season long. I think they would have had to pay to make him go away with his contract. So it's just
right.
It's one of those things where the trade deadline makes everything weird, and with the salary cap, it changes
weirder.
Things, because you get close to the deadline, and all of a sudden. I mean, Patrick Kane and Vladimir Tarasenko just went to the New York Rangers, and those guys make a combined 18 plus, but they're getting them on the pennies on the dollar there, So it's a goofy world right now.
So earlier you said you thought these moves lead towards wanting to win the cup. I actually believe that these moves indicate to me they were afraid that there's a possibility that they can still miss the playoffs, and that was the fear there. I don't think these moves push you closer to the cup. I honestly, truthfully, do not believe Teddy Blueger is better than the player that's going to come out of the lineup for Teddy Blueger. So I don't see that as an increase at all. And in many ways, I actually think it's possible that it ends up being a decrease in how they play, because we've seen over the course of 60 games, a lot of guys don't pick up the Cassidy system immediately. Blueger's a smart guy. Blueger's been a good defensive player, but he's been in the same system his entire career. And to believe that there's a chance that he doesn't pick this up as well as Nick Howden has, or Brett Howden has it right now, I think that's possible. Either way, I don't think he's going to be better a lot, certainly not a lot, if any better than whoever comes out for him. I do think Barbashev is better than the player that's coming out for him. However, I don't think Barbashev does the thing they actually need. It does a thing they don't do, a thing that they can get better at, being a little bit more physical, going to the front of the goal. I just don't know that he's actually going to be the guy that you're going to get to a playoff series and say, yeah, but now we have this guy who's going to be able to score for us. Like the things that are going to happen for them to have to succeed in the playoffs are going to have to be the misfits rounding back into form and all be 35 goal scorers all at the same time. And Teddy Blueger doesn't help that. And Barbashev doesn't help that. And Quick doesn't help that.
Can we just,
and Quick really,
can we just, yeah, can we just end this and just say they struck out getting any big fish?
Well, and actually, I asked the question today, was your first round pick off the table? And he said, no, it was not. We would have traded the first round pick. They were in on Timo Meier. They were in on Patrick Kane. They probably were in on other players that we don't have the entire deal on. Then I asked about the power play, and I said, actually, I think I did it backwards, nonetheless. I said, basically, is your power play where it needs to be? Like, you've had a good month, but you've also had really bad months here. Is it where you need to be? And his response was, the personnel on the power play is here. We have it. I don't know if that's including Mark Stone. He didn't really give a great answer a couple days ago on that. Whether you're actually operating with as if Mark Stone's going to play again, that would potentially change things. It just, to me, they were moves to make sure you don't miss and you don't fall off here. I think it's unrealistic to think that they're going to miss. If they win 8 games out of their next 21, which would be crap, no, it would actually have to be 8-13. If they go 8-13, they're in the playoffs. Like, it's pretty likely they're going to be in the playoffs. Where you land, okay, if you're sitting here saying, well, we'd rather land in first, and so we get the extra home game. All right. But again, I just don't think they push you towards the cup. And you're right. It is, they walk in the candy store and say, well, we just buy it all. We got the money. Might as well. I don't see it as pushing forward. And honestly, I think the goalie thing is a step back. I think he's going to get into games and he's going to be worse than the guys who should have been going into games. I'll say it. I think he's probably better than Michael Hutchinson. I think he's probably better than Yuri Patera. I think he's probably better than Isaiah Seville at this very moment. I don't think he's better than Aiden Hill. I don't think he's better than Laurent Brossoit. I don't think he's better than Logan Thompson. And I'm concerned because one of those three goalies has an ego that I am concerned about. He needs to be handed the starting job. Everyone knows who I'm talking about. He needs to be handed the starting job. And now he's suddenly not. Even if they say he's got it, there's a possibility that a bad game here or there is going to crop up and put this guy in behind him. And all of a sudden, we're going to be having some issues again. Like, it's so easy to sit here and say it's an insurance policy. It was worth nothing. It didn't cost us anything. All of that is true and fine and well. There's 4 human beings that are now going to be in that room. There's one goal. There's too many options. There's too many egos. There's too many things that are going to swirl around. And then shows like this one are going to be talking 3 games into the playoffs. Should they switch? Should they do this? Should they do that? And it's going to be all in the discourse. And all of it is going to crop up and just make life harder when you could have just gone and bought someone later. Like, this is the other piece. The trade deadline, people don't remember this. The trade deadline is actually only the trade deadline to play in the playoffs. You're ineligible to play in the playoffs if you acquire a player after the trade deadline. If Aiden Hill gets hurt in the next month, go buy some AHLer and he can't play in the playoffs. Who cares?
And what you do is you bring a guy back from Europe. I've seen that.
Or before. That.
Marty Turco did that last year.
Like, there are other ways, and they're not named Jonathan Quick, and they're not going to bring the cachet that this guy brings. That means you can't bench him. You're going to have to treat. We know already he cried when he got traded from a team because he sucked. And he whined about it. Like, it's not as simple as it just comes across as, well, we didn't have a 4th goalie, so we got one now. Like, it's not that easy. It just isn't.
There's a lot going on. Yep. I'm like I said, though, he's going to come in and play fine. I know it. Like, I know he's going to go out. He'll probably go out and have a shot on his first game. Everybody's going to go, savior.
I'll take that bet. Yeah. I bet he does.
I'm just.
You're not wrong. He could. They could play a good game. He could.
Yep. There's a reason why the guy did win what he did, but you just can't do it consistently with what he is. So I think we've pretty much set our piece on it. We're going to have to see how it goes. I think it is a quagmire for the club. I do think they were smart to get a goalie, though, with these injury problems, given where the team is and the fact that they are trying to win. I just think that was boy, you bring in a guy like, if they bring in Korpisalo, like, I know it would have cost more. I would have much rather spent a 3rd-round pick on Korpisalo than
Blueger,
than a 3rd and a 7th on Blueger and Quick. You know, could have said 1/3 for Korpisalo, basically. Like, I would have taken that in a heartbeat. Cam Talbot, I don't know what he's going to go for.
Hudobin was free.
No question. They were trying to
get rid of the
contract.
Right.
Alex Nedeljkovic.
There you go. He's free. It's a different option.
But Alex Nedeljkovic isn't Jonathan Quick. You know?
Right. And do you think there's any part of it that's like, let's embarrass the Kings?
Of vindictiveness? I don't, because I think it's truly,
okay.
This is old school hockey thinking. This is when you get guys who don't know goalies that just go, well, he's done it before. He can do it again. I don't care what his stats are. He can do it again. And that's what people who don't know goalies, like, you go back to that. So, like I said, I've multiple goalie coaches, multiple people around LA, all the same conclusion. He wasn't waived because he's Jonathan Quick. And I think the world of this guy, man. Like, I was a massive Quick fan. I still think, like, that run he had from about 2011 clear to 2016 or 18 or so was just unbelievable. But it hasn't been there for 5 seasons, except for about 2 months last year. So I think we've set our piece on that.
All right. Let's move on to the game.
How about that game last night?
Because that game was, and we've come on here and we've had games where we like their play. We've had games where we don't like the other team's play and we don't really believe it. We've had games where the Golden Knights don't score, where they don't generate, or whatever. We've had all these other games. I think there was something to be said about that game in that Carolina came in here and they skated well. They passed it well. They didn't miss a ton of nets. Like the only thing that I can really remember, the one you were talking about, and then there were a couple of draws that they would win a draw and they had an immediate shot from the high slot and they were missing those ones. They were not bad at all. Like at all. They were here. They're a good team. They played a good game. The Golden Knights were better. The Golden Knights didn't even get an elite goaltending performance, and they were better. The Golden Knights even did the thing that I am so excited about, and that is generated their own rush chance. They broke the puck out of the zone. They hit a stretch pass off of a wall. They had an unbelievable play by Amadio to catch that pass heading into the zone, recognize he's got a 2-on-1, understand that it's this psychopath Chatfield that's going to skate past him. Who is that guy, by the way? I've never seen this guy before. He is a psycho when he plays hockey. Nuts.
He's been pretty good this year for Carolina, man. Yeah,
but he was pretty good at times in that game. He's just nuts. The guy skates 1,000 miles an hour, playing a position where you should not be skating 1,000 miles an hour. It was nuts. Nonetheless, hell of a play, hell of a pass, hell of a delay. Good job on Smith to finally finish one. You know, they played a good hockey game. They did the things that make you say, hey, this team can win playoff games. That team last night wins playoff games, a lot of playoff games. Even wins playoff games against excellent teams in the East. Can they contain that? Can they keep doing that? Or was that a nice game?
That was a great game. It was a great game for the Golden Knights.
Like, is it just that's a good game? We remember that game 6 months down the road. Like, yeah, that was a good game.
Ken, when their lineup's been full, they've been good this year. That's really, there's no way to get around that at this point, I think. And I know that they're still missing Stone out of it, but you look at, to me, the line of Carlson, Smith, and Amadio was just flat out dangerous in a good way. Like, that was the best game I've seen them play. And I thought that the matchups made it tough for Eichel to get anything going, which is funny because Eichel buried, man. And I said this, like, you give him time and space, he'll make you pay. And he did twice last game. But he was
that line, for him. It's a fast game.
But that line was largely quiet when it came to actually generating chances, in my eyes. But again, that's because of matchups. You're playing against a really good team. And that's where, you know, I thought that fourth line for the team was just a little bit out of sync. You know, and Eichel's line didn't really get it going for me until he scored that first goal. And they were in the zone for felt like 3 minutes before they finally put it in the net. Wore him down, cycle the puck. I mean, prolonged possession in the zone. And Vegas was the better team, at least, you know, really the whole game, but really through the first half of it, especially. I thought the biggest thing was that they just had such a commitment to having their third man high in the offensive zone. And when the puck went the other way, they backtracked their ass off. Back checking. I mean, Carlson all over the ice, and not just him, you know, every line you saw that from. And the one thing that I noticed, though, that makes me a little concerned about this, and it's just something as an aside, but like Carrier, Stevenson, Kessel, against a team like Carolina that's deep, 4 lines deep, their matchup isn't going to be good. They were on the wrong side of it for most of the game. Yep. But against shitty teams, they're great, you know, because they can just outskate them. Yeah. Really, that's what they can outskate them, and they can largely carry and even Kessel can outwill people. Like, Kessel is a competitive bastard, you know what I mean? But deep teams, you don't notice them. So to me, like, they kept everything to the outside. They didn't allow Carolina to enter with speed. Like, the blue line was great, but it also started with how tight their pressure was on the walls at the offensive blue line. Yep. It was like, there were a lot of moments from that game that I wanted to clip for our squirt team, which, by the way, they lost in the semis in a 1-0 game that they lost with 3 minutes left. And these kids played their hearts out. I've never been so proud of them in my life. It was the best game of the year.
4 line changes, I think.
No, the one defenseman turned the puck the wrong direction, but it was amazing.
It was poor line changes. There was an opportunity to challenge a goal and you blew it. Like, there was a lot of coaching error. I thought the preparation was poor. It was mostly coaching. Yeah.
But, you know, last night, you really see how good Alex Pietrangelo is. You see it all the time, but in a game like that,
fantastic.
He's been the best player all year. He was so good. And Alec Martinez, to me, has really started to come on in the last couple of months, right? And it probably helps going back to Petro and everything. But like Marty, to me, has been way better, right? He's not just eating shots. He's also making good plays. So I'm kind of looking through my notes to make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, this is what it was. So the game-winning goal, that like the puck goes behind the net, and Martinez is on his backhand, man. The easy thing to do is just rim it on your forehand, because he's got Smith on the right side ready to go. But this is where intelligence comes in, man, and hockey sense, that Martinez knows if he stops that puck, the least populated side is if he goes back the same direction.
Other side, yeah. Yep.
Because everybody's expecting to go the other way. And he just makes this little pop over to Petro, goes back to him on his backhand. And they extend the zone up to, Carlson, up to Amadio, to Smith. Like, I just watched it and I went, man, that's such a smart play. That I don't know if Marty was making those plays earlier this year. So in any case, I don't know if this is a sustainable game. I don't know if they can do this night in and night out. They had an unbelievable matchup. But it gave me a lot of hope too. Because this was, even when I say that the third line wasn't noticeable or not great, they weren't bad, Ken. Like Carrier, Stevenson. They were not bad. There wasn't I couldn't pick out a player in the Golden Knights that had a tough game last night. But that's what you need against Carolina, or these good teams. Give me one.
Yeah, I don't think I can either. I'm trying to think. I don't have one.
Yeah.
I thought Stevenson was not as noticeable as we've seen it at different times. However, there was an opportunity in there that I thought he was going to score. So if he had potted that one, we feel a little bit different. But I think like that's the part, that type of play that you're talking about, the play behind the goal. Martinez gets it. He makes the right play, and then they make one pass up to Carlson. It's an easy one. Petro's going to make that play every single time. And then in that spot, they had something built into their game plan. Like you could see it last night. They knew Carolina's D play high up the ice. You can get behind them. So they're throwing home run passes over the top. They're hitting indirect passes in behind them. What I really liked about it was that they got two different rush chances. One was the Eichel breakaway. That one, yes, there is an absolute disastrous play by Brady Shea in the offensive zone. However, Vegas caused part of that. The puck bounces out in the middle. He tries
I should know that it was Shea.
Or maybe it was Slavin. I thought it was Shea. You might be right because Burns was on the ice. Burns was on the ice with him, so you might be right. Either way, there were bodies in the right position defensively to stop that play. And he makes this play, and now it is a mistake going the other way, but Vegas has numbers coming out. They make the right play on the break. They're going to score on their breaks. Like those plays are them generating offense using their rush game. It's not waiting for the other team to make the mistakes to generate the rush game. It's you generating your offense. we're going to bring Jason up here now too. I want to talk about the concept of, especially now that they've brought in two players that aren't really going to generate offense in the half court, whatever, in zone offense.
Half court.
They're still going to be a rush team, right? They're going to be a rush. Yeah, people. I hate that term. I hate shot clock too. Either way, but can this team generate rush chances if the other team doesn't hand them to them consistently? If that's the case, they're really dangerous. If it's not, they're going to go through scoring woes. Can they do it? I'll ask both of you.
So let's just say they start with LA, right? It'd be tough, right? That's going to be a tough series because it's not going to lend towards what you're asking for. But if they play Seattle, absolutely. I mean, I think they can beat Seattle in that situation in the first round, no problem.
For me, it just comes down to winning your board battles, and they consistently done that all season long. That's the hard part for me.
I mean, they went out and got a guy who does win, board battles.
Well, that's what I mean. Like Barbashev is pretty good.
Blueger or Barbashev? See, I thought he was. I don't think he's very good along the walls in the defensive zone. I think he's good along the walls in the offensive zone. I don't think he's good along the walls in the defensive zone.
Well, I mean,
so that's where you're not going to get the rush chance. Go ahead.
you just go off of last night's game, and I thought that they owned that area. I thought that the Vegas Golden Knights
They
were
did.
better on the half wall for the first time in a while, like consistently the whole time
against a good team.
Yeah, and so do I think they can? They've shown they can, but when has it been consistent? They've had these big swells. They've gone great games, 3 or 4 or 5 in a row, and then fall off. But a lot of that fall off was always when there was people out of the lineup. So, like, if they could consistently roll this lineup, I feel good about the team. If there's a couple more injuries, if you lose 1 or 2 more defensemen that can't get the puck up the wall quick enough, like, then I don't start to feel the same. But as it's constructed now, I think that they can compete with any team. Yes.
But what about a team that will outrush them, like Edmonton?
Yeah, they're in trouble against Edmonton if they're going to move. I mean, that's every team against Edmonton. You got to keep them off it. I mean, the ace in the hole against Edmonton is that Vegas doesn't take hardly any penalties. So you're not just going to let Eichel and everybody go crazy in that game. Or sorry, let McDavid and everybody just go and do whatever they please,
Well, now they have Teddy Blueger. They have the answer to McDavid.
Oh, Ken.
No.
Is he the new Dano?
Yeah.
He's not Dano.
3rd round pick.
Dano puts up 65 points a year.
You put in Blueger and boom. Sorry, I feel bad because I like Teddy. He's a good guy. But so, like, when I look at playoff series, I do look at certain matchups. And I think Carolina is an interesting matchup because there's a couple of things that Carolina does. They forecheck super hard. Their defensemen are fairly active in the offensive zone. You can catch behind them. They're not horribly physical. They're not going to bang you into the boards. They're not going to forecheck you to the way where you feel like, I got to just move this so I don't get hurt here. There are teams like that. Seattle's kind of like that. Edmonton can kind of be like that. They'll hit a little bit more. Like
Seattle can hit.
Winnipeg certainly kind of like that. We're like these types of teams, I feel like Vegas can generate the offense against. But when the ice isn't there, when you play a team, because I think beyond anything, whether you play any of the teams I just mentioned or you play anybody else in the entire NHL, I think after 2 games you play the Golden Knights. No matter what the score is in the series, you're going to go back to the dressing room after the game, look up on the board and say, yeah, we shouldn't have given them those 2 odd man rushes. If we give them 0, we win. And I think that's where my question remains, and we had the same answer as Cassidy had. If we win our board battles, we will generate our own rush chances. I don't think I believe it. I know it makes sense in theory. I just don't know that I fully believe it without the help of the other team. And you're not going to get that help for 4 different teams all the way through a run to the Stanley Cup final and winning.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but that's the nature of playoffs, right? So you have to just ask that of your players. The thing is that you did touch on you did touch on something though that the team, and I've been saying this for a while, like nobody's scared of Vegas anymore. Teams used to be scared, like that forecheck when they'd be 4 lines deep, and oh God, they're coming, and that's not there. I think the hope is Barbashev can change that tune a little bit. But we really haven't seen even that yet from him. Like it's not like he's laid any big hits the last couple games here. He's been, kind of into the game, but
I think they're going to win the board battles against Dallas, against,
No, they're not against Dallas. I mean, is this team, you want to boil it down? Is this team mean enough to win?
This has been an issue since the inception of this team. I don't think they've ever been mean enough. I don't think, like you just said, nobody's really scared of them. That was talent and skill and style, but I don't think anybody's really been scared of them when it comes to physicality, even when Reeves was on the team.
But I think that when I was working on the broadcast team 2 years ago, like before 2 years ago, when you had Pacioretty and Reeves, and I'm missing people, but like I talked to players around the league, they're like, gosh, this team just comes. And they're hard, and you're going to pay a price. Like there was a different feeling to those teams that's not there any longer at all. It's just they're just from that aspect, they're just another team.
They don't have any. They don't have any big tough wings like you're talking about. Pacioretty they had before. Right. Stone obviously isn't on the ice, so the
centers don't hit. The centers won't touch you. All 3 of them. 4. I mean, maybe Blueger will more. I don't think he's a big hitter, but like. Centers aren't going to touch you.
There's not many centers that are big hitters in the league, though, either. I mean, I could probably fact check that to find out, but yeah. I'm. Is this team ready to contend and compete? Like one game last night, boy, they sure look like it. But the course of the season, we've seen that they're still trying to get there, So,
who plays that game last night if Jonathan Quick is on the team already?
Oh, I think they're going to play Quick as soon as they can. There's no doubt.
He's going to play Sunday. He's going to play Sunday. Like he kind of hinted at that today. He's clearly not playing tomorrow. Hill's playing tomorrow, but it did sound like there was a plan to get Quick in there on Sunday against a team that they've struggled against. Montreal's not good, but the Golden Knights have struggled against them historically. Another thing that was brought up today, and we talked about it a little bit before, was the idea that they were willing to move the first round pick, that they flat out said, we're not moving the first round pick for a rental, but we would have moved the first round pick. I want to kind of dive into what that means for where they see the team. So
they could still
if
do
you're
it.
Willing to, they could, that could be smoke screen. We'll see. It was all past tensey, so it sounded like there's not a lot going on. I think there's an argument to be made that they bought off half of Quick's salary so that they can hold more players above the salary cap, and they never get, because the roster limits go away, and they don't have to worry about that issue of like, we only have 18 skaters. I think they left some money, so I think they could be done. However, if you're a team that's willing to trade your first round pick for a rental, you are clearly a team who believes you're going to win the Stanley Cup now. Like
you're the Boston
Bruins.
Season.
Like I think any team that's willing to do that,
first round picks, though, man.
I get that, but if you're doing it, that's what you're signaling. We can win the Stanley Cup now. Like for rentals. If you only do it for rentals, how long's for Korpisalo? So like they actually got 2 rentals for it, the Kings, and I don't know how that's going to work out. If they're only willing to do it for Timo Meier, for someone else, Brock Besser, maybe if that's tomorrow or somebody else pops up, that they're willing to do it for that, are they truly fully all in on this team winning the Stanley Cup this season, buying Barbashev, Blueger, and Quick? Is that a deadline that screams, we can do it, we're going to do it, let's go?
Well, I mean, this goes back to what I said earlier. They just struck out on the big dogs, so they got the best they could.
Yeah, but did they? I mean, you guys probably
honestly, I would have liked to see Max Domi. That guy's a prick on the ice. He's a prick. He can score. For a second rounder, you could have had a little bit of jam to stick on your third line.
Yep.
Maybe second. I like Max Domi.
Me too.
And
I also think that, and we talked about it a couple weeks ago, Talbot would have been a better pickup than Quick. That's just my opinion.
No question in my mind. Absolutely, 100% Talbot.
Absolutely.
You need a stable goalie that's going to give you a 9.10 to a 9.15. Talbot behind Cassidy, man, dude, he would crush. Like, no doubt in my mind. He's not the most athletic guy. He's not the most durable either. But like, he has been really consistent, and he's got playoff experience. He's got like a 9.20 something in playoffs, and he's played a decent amount of games.
And doesn't that answer Ken's question when they go out and get I wouldn't even call Quick a top 3 option. They go out and get a mediocre goaltender. Isn't that sort of answering your question? That they don't believe it's a cup winning team?
No, because to them, they got Quick because he's won the cups, man. Like they're not living in reality with the goalies that they're picking up here. Okay. Like they're looking at this from a years ago perspective of this guy's he's won, he can do it. He's got experience. We believe that he could be the guy. Like there's no way they'd look at Alex Nedeljkovic and say he could win a cup for us, or Thomas Greiss, he could win a cup for us, because they don't want to admit that those guys have been better. Like Nedeljkovic hasn't been a better goalie all season long. I mean, I will freely admit that, but I'm trying to put like within the parameters of the thinking.
Yeah.
Right. And there's an optic to that too. Like, I don't think that these guys think, if you go out and trade for Anton Hudobin, who's been in the American League, people are looking at you like you're an idiot. And if you trade for Jonathan Quick, they're probably thinking, well, at least he's won, and everybody's going to believe that they think we did the best. And
yeah, but Golden Knights fans aren't idiots. They've seen enough LA King games over the past 6 years to know that, we've seen the decline of Jonathan Quick. He was fantastic in that first series that the Golden Knights have ever played. I mean, beyond that, he hasn't really been Jonathan Quick.
Nope. So I'm like I say, I didn't mind going to get a goalie. They got the wrong guy. And the crazy part is that he's going to go out and have a couple games that are great, and everybody's going to be like, look at you shitting on this guy. And then, all right, you can say all you want, man. But
Yep.
And here's the thing. Sometimes crazy shit happens. Maybe the guy leads him to the cup. I don't know. It's just, you don't have as good a chance of that with Quick as you do Talbot in today's day and age. You just don't, man. There's no way around that. And I guarantee you that every single NHL goalie coach, not maybe everyone, probably 23 of them, would say the exact same thing.
So when the trade deadline ends, we often look at different teams and what they've done, and it becomes clear what is the goal. Boston, they sold a first-round pick. They're all in. They got to win this year. Toronto, they've gone pretty close to damn all in. They got to win. Tampa gave up their entire draft for Tanner Jeannot. They got to win. Like, they at least got to progress through the playoffs pretty hard. What do the Golden Knights have to do? If they lose in the first round, was this trade deadline an absolute and utter embarrassment? Not really.
No, I don't think it is. And that's kind of what you – in some ways, like, even though they did the kid in the candy store thing by just going and spending money for when they really didn't have to, I can't tell, though, how much we could credit them as being smart this trade deadline and using their heads if they just simply couldn't get the players they really wanted. Like, there's a balance to that. Like, if they really wanted Meyer and they couldn't get him, that's can't do anything about it. Tarasenko.
Well,
Kane,
you put yourself in that position. The Kane, you can make the argument. Meyer, they put themselves in the position. If they had not blown the future as many times as they have blown the future, then they'd be able to have gotten Meyer. They could have come up with a package as good as what Meyer was given there, but they don't have it. They don't have those players. So it's on them. If they can't get Meyer, it's on them. Kane's different. Kane may have just flat out not wanted to come to Las Vegas. It snows here. I'm not coming there.
Well, TSN is also reporting still.
Place.
TSN is also still reporting that there's a bidding war for JVR between Vegas and Winnipeg. Does that change your opinion with that?
Until they start getting pucks through on the power play, no, because I love JVR. I think he's got great hockey sense. I think he's incredibly good in front of the net. I think he cares a lot. But he's not going to speed the team up at all. And for a team that really relies on speed like Vegas, I'm not sure where he's going to fit into that. Where are you going to stash him on that lineup? So
would you move Barbashev down and move and put JVR there?
He's not a first line player. Like, that's the problem. They're having a hard time putting together a top line right now because he's trying to spread it out, which, as good as Carlson, Amadio, and Smith looked last night, I get it.
It's just, there hasn't been that enough to sit here and say that's a second line that wins a cup to me. Like, I don't feel that way. I think there's an argument to be made that you could say your third line has done enough that you could feel pretty comfortable there. Like, that can be a third line. If we have a first line that's great and we have a second line that's great, that can be our third line. For fourth line at different times, you can feel that. Obviously, Teddy Blueger is going to shut down the best player on the other team every single night. So clearly the fourth line is now elite. We know that. That's worth a third round pick. I continue because, like, I like to kind of put ourselves in the shoes. So, like, we had our ideas of what we thought necessarily needed to happen at the deadline. There's an argument that they could have sold. I think that kind of went out the window when they won all these games out of the break. They clearly put
that was your argument, brother.
Like,
you were the one championing
there was an argument there. It kind of had to go by the wayside as the team, as healthy as they were, continued to play well enough against the Tampas and the Carolinas and these types of teams. Okay. So then you say, all right, so should they have gone further all in? Should they be selling a first round pick? Like, if tomorrow comes and you say there is a player worth the first round pick, I'm trying to think who that could potentially be. I guess maybe Besser is probably the clearest name that could potentially help at this point. If that player becomes available, I've seen people in our Discord mentioning Toffoli. I don't fully understand how that makes sense. But let's say there's a first-line player is Brock Besser a first-line player on this team? I think it's yes, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
given
so.
the deployment of Cassidy, I think he'd probably use him there.
All right. So say you get Brock Besser for just the first round pick. Should they do that? Don't think about next year. Should they do that?
In my opinion, no.
No, and I
Probably
think
doesn't push them
questions. There's questions with his output. There's questions with his health. There's questions about being $6+ million for the next, I believe, 4 seasons. I want to say, without looking
after
at
this
it.
one. Two more
after. No, Besser to me I would actually like Besser in a place like Carolina, where you've got a rock solid organization and system that I think would support him and make it work there with the players around him. And Besser and I don't really see the Canucks wanting to take a ton of money back on this deal as much as they seem to have dangled that. To me, Brock Besser, if you could get Brock Besser listen, you get that guy at $4 million, you take him all day long. 4.5.
But it's 3 years. They're going to have to take it for 2 years. Someone else is going to have to do it.
No, I don't. I mean, and there's not many scoring wingers. That's what I mean by they missed out on the big dogs, right? You missed out on Meyer, Tarasenko, Kane.
Right. So
I guess realistically, what I'm saying is I actually think that they played this deadline. Aside from like the Blueger deal to me, that's a waste of a pick, honestly. Aside from that one, I think they were pretty smart with this deadline, because I actually think they're going to extend Barbashev if things go pretty well. Like, he's kind of like Janmark to me. Like, you really kind of have Janmark 2.0 here, only like Barbashev hits a little harder and he doesn't skate quite as well as Janmark. He's a better finisher.
Janmark has more finish. I think Janmark has more finish, actually.
Really?
Than Barbashev.
I don't agree with that one. Listen, I was teammates with Janmark and I've watched Barbashev a lot. Yeah. Matthias, man, I love that guy. It's a chore to score. Barbashev. I
also think Matthias is a really good fit he's going to pick up your system immediately. Like, that guy, I think, is going to be a GM. True. I think Matthias Janmark is going to be a GM. So I think he's easier to pick up the system. I don't know what's going to happen with Barbashev. I asked him, how different are the systems here? And he looked at me and he goes, different. And that was all the answer he wanted to give me. I'm like, oh boy. Okay. But so, like, because I look at all this and, like, obviously I think it was clear they were not going to sell off pieces that could have helped them win this season. That was not going to happen. Foley probably wasn't going to allow it. Front office knows that it wasn't worth it. They're not going to do that. Selling your first round pick, to me, I don't agree with the idea of I would have sold our first round pick only because we needed a guy that we could have stick around for a while. That doesn't make sense to me, because if they would have gotten Meyer, it would have cost them half their roster. And it wouldn't have cost them half their roster right now. It would have cost them half the roster over the course of the next few years. So I don't fully understand that. A first round pick for the rental, usually I'm on board saying no, absolutely not. Unless you're going to win the Stanley Cup, absolutely not. But if you put in all the other things that they've done, and you sit here and you say, all right, say they did nothing. Say they had done absolutely nothing. No Barbashev, no Blueger, no Jonathan Quick. They're sitting just rolling forward. They'd be in the exact same spot they're in now. I don't think they won that game because of Barbashev. I don't think they lost the game in Colorado because of Barbashev. I think they're the same. If that happens and you flame out in the first or second round, they're catching shit for doing nothing, right?
Yeah, but also wouldn't that show you a sign that they didn't believe in the team to win enough, so they decided to kind of play disciplined at this deadline and not go in?
What would that have said? You've done nothing. You've given up nothing, but you've added nothing, and then you don't make it because, and let's say it's the two things we think it's going to be. One guy gets hurt from the top 6 and the top 4, and then they can't score. We're all going to be like, why didn't you do anything? What?
They're first in the Pacific. They're not selling anybody, man. It's just as simple as that. They're not doing it. And I don't know what the return would even be.
Could they have sat? They could have sat still. They could have sat the deadline out.
I think that this team, you've got to sometimes in the room go, okay, we're going to try to get this club better, because it is true that this isn't a great lineup. It's a good lineup, but not a great lineup. And if you're in that room and you want to contend, maybe and surprise people, you do have to have an extra piece or two. Like I said, the Blueger one's kind of strange to me. It's just strange. That one's the one I just scratched my head with.
I think for me, it's the quick one. I still don't understand. Ken, you just talked about if they did nothing or what they did now. In my opinion, I think they're about the same, if not a little weaker, if they decide to go with Quick as their starter.
Oh, they're worse with him as their starter. They're absolutely
so they
worse
actually
with their starter.
yes. So they actually could have potentially made a move that steps them back, which is weird to say that was even possible. And whatever, we'll see if that ends up happening. I agree. If he plays playoff games, that trade was wrong. Like, I think it's that simple. Like, you should not have made that trade if he was going to play playoff games. I look at the Blueger one and I say, okay, well, if he's halfway decent, everyone's going to be pumped that they gave up a 3rd-round pick for him. And by halfway decent, I mean just looks okay defensively. If he's nothing and he gets healthy scratched in the playoffs, no one really is going to care all that much. It was a 3rd-round pick. We gave it a shot. He was a rental. He's gone. No big deal. Barbashev, that one's linked to Dean. If Barbashev's nothing and then Dean turns out to be anything, that's going to look really bad, but it's going to take a while. It's not going to be a next year thing. It feels like a super safe deadline in many ways, and it feels like it helped them in the regular season. It helped add some depth, but it did not do anything to get them closer to doing the thing they want, and the team's old. The team is old. So at some point, you have to say, we're going to have to go for it. I made the argument the whole year. I don't think it was the year to go for it. Because there were so many reasons for that have happened in the past that led to that lead you to be inconsistent. But and Mark Stone's out for the season. Let's go for it next year when Stone's not out for the season, hopefully. I don't have a good read on this deadline because I don't think it helped the team, but I don't think they gave up that much. And I don't know what to make of it. Someone tell me what to make of this deadline.
It's simple. They made moves because they could make moves, and they thought they could help their team a little bit and see what happens. And they struck out on the big guys. If you strike out on the big guys, you can't force things. So,
was it necessarily striking out, or maybe they just realized halfway through conversations that they just don't have enough capital to make these moves? Was it did reality sit in?
There's always enough capital if you want to have the capital. I think that they, for once, they'll realize this is probably out of our league for what we need to pay for these type of players. By the way, I was not on a bender last night. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. It's 10:08 p.m. here. I've been up for a long time, and I was on the ice earlier. It's a little different than Vegas. I know you guys have been snowed on recently and everything, but it also is because I've got this bright light in my eyes. I'm trying to make my lighting better for you guys. So I'm just, like I'm on set, but, I really do. I think that their trade deadline was really predicated by supply and demand. What was available, what they could get, what they were willing to pay. They couldn't really get to the echelon that they wanted to be. And so they got what they thought could help them, and they're going to hope that they surprise. I think they hope they surprise.
Is this accurate? It's like Nick says it's like throwing a bet on a horse that's 200-1. If he wins, you look brilliant and it was awesome. If he loses, no big deal. You didn't lose that much.
I think that's true about Quick. I think it's true about Quick. I think that is. But boy, you can't run that horse out there.
But that's the funny thing, right? All three of us, and I think everybody on in the comment section is saying, please do not start Quick in the playoffs. But how much better are the goaltenders than Quick? And will Cassidy and the front office say, we just brought this guy in for Stanley Cup experience. Of course we're going to start him.
Yeah, they are going to start him. They're going to play Hill and Quick in a rotation. That's what's going to happen. I would almost put a Billy on it right now. That's a Billy guarantee for everybody out there. That's what I would expect. I think they're going to rotate them.
In the playoffs?
Set the over-under.
No.
Set the over-under on number of regular season games remaining. 21 games, regular season games remaining. Boot out next game because we know he's not playing that. So you have 20 games that Jonathan Quick could potentially play. Assuming he's healthy for all 20, how many does he play?
Minimum 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had it at 6.5, and I think that I would bet the under actually on the 6.5, but it just and that like it would have been Hutchinson, right? Or I guess it would have been a tired Hill. So in theory, he is going to be better even in those early games. I wonder about, and we beat it to death. Like I wonder about what happens when everyone's healthy. I don't know that they got better. I don't know that they got worse. I don't know that they actually gave up all that much. I don't think that they pushed their odds to win the Stanley Cup any further. I don't think that they addressed the one massive area that they actually needed to address, which was scoring some goals. I don't know what this deadline is. I think we're going to look back at this deadline and just be like, I guess they made moves.
Yeah. Well, what happens guys, there's still tomorrow.
There is still tomorrow.
But here's the thing. Okay, so let's wrap on this. Do you expect anything more tomorrow? And if you do,
I do not.
I think they got that extra money just sitting around, and this is a team that likes to spend up until the dollars and cents. So I'm gonna think. I think they do. I think they go out and make another move. I don't know how big or small, but I think they're still active.
Jason, I agree with you. I think they're going to make one more small move. Exactly for the reasons you said, because they can.
When you say small move, do you mean like if there's Timo Meier is here, Ivan Barbashev is here, Teddy Blueger is here, where does it land? Put it in between. Like you have to fit it in somewhere between Meier, Barbashev, Blueger, or under.
In between Barbashev and Blueger.
That would have said the same thing. Jason, we're lockstep here.
So it's more than a third round pick?
No, I think remember Blueger's the best penalty killer on earth, so that makes him a third round pick.
I'm aware.
I think he is a sick penalty killer. I'm not fucking around here. He's an amazing penalty killer.
I know, but Vegas already has a bunch of good penalty
killers. I know they do. It just you got to sell them somehow. Like we've seen it sold. They're going to give up a 5th or 6th round pick for somebody. That's my guess. And honestly, it could be a D. Like they've been the rumblings I've heard for so long is that they were looking for a left shot D to round out. Like honestly, I think they were looking for a replacement for Haig is what I thought. But Hutton's the 7th defenseman right now. Are they comfortable with that? Yep. I could see them flip out Hutton for. You're gonna love this one. I could see him flip out Holden for Nick, or flip out Hutton for Nick Holden.
I don't think they should have never gotten rid of Holden. To tell you the truth,
I could see Nick Holden right back with the Vegas Golden Knights. I could see it.
Nick Holden was in the Dodonov trade. Nick Holden was actually a usable player for Ottawa. Like he was a piece in that Dodonov trade. You say they shouldn't have got rid of him, but they didn't necessarily want to get rid of him. That was
He's
a piece
the type
to
of
buy
player,
a player that was going to score.
And honestly, if I'm looking at it, I wouldn't mind a little more depth on D. So
now that you talk about it, the fact that you just brought up that Hutton is your number 7, I mean, Holden is the perfect number 7. I mean, you could play Holden.
They're not going to get a forward that's going to make a difference at this point for the price they have to pay. Go grab a 7D. That would be my point if they did it.
One last question on the goalie, because for me, the whole deadline comes down to the Quick deal. If he plays in the playoffs, they're screwed. Okay, I think we all agree on that. But how long did it take Cassidy to decide to go with Swayman last season? Like, was it a last month decision, last week?
That's a hard call because Ullmark and Swayman were really neck and neck last year. I really think that Cassidy probably went right down to the wire thinking, I may just end up rotating these guys and then going with Swayman. Is my best guess. And it's different there because you had 2 guys that just didn't have any playoff experience. That's very different than what you have in Vegas. Like Jonathan Quick has all the experience in the world, and I'm like, it's
so that leans towards him starting game 1.
Yeah, oh, absolutely it does, Jason. Yes. Like, yeah, I'm telling you, man, people, even 2 years ago, I asked a buddy of mine that knows him really well, like, what's going on here? Everything's like, oh, I know if I had one game in the world, I'd put that guy in the net. And I'm like, have you watched him?
I can't get over, and I tweeted it today. I can't get over it. The team in second place traded their backup because he's not good enough to be their backup. To get a better goalie to be better than their starter, Vegas traded for that backup to become their starter. What's going on? What world is this? It's insanity. They claim he's not the starter. They claim he's not.
There's a level of disassociation because he was somebody else's property. But
usually it's opposite. It's usually opposite of that. Usually people overvalue their own property as opposed to others.
Here's the thing.
You're right. That's exactly
I will
right.
say that I want to say this though. I really hope Quick just shoves it up our fucking ass, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I honestly do. I hope that. I know that I come off negative, but god damn it, he's got an 8.76 and he's been terrible. Like if you watch his games, it's not been good, you know?
And by the way, Mike, it's not just this season. It's been 5 seasons.
That's what I mean.
5.
Well,
do you think they knocked on Gibson's door?
Oh God, that would be stupid too.
I was just wondering, do you think they did?
I don't even want to know. I don't think so. No, at the price point he's at, because LT's their guy, I really would be surprised by that. I wouldn't expect that at all. Like LT is their guy because not just because of how he's played this year, because of his cap hit and everything. I don't think Gibson fits in any way for this team. I think he has 3 or 4 years left on his deal, at least. It's 6+ or something. And Gibson is one guy I would never touch either, because I think he's stuck in a time warp too, to put it easily.
I've got one last thing. What is the best case scenario for how this deadline worked out? What is the worst case scenario for how this deadline worked out? Because I think we're going to fall in the middle, and I think it's going to end up being a deadline that we don't think all that much of come the end of this season. What's the best case? What's the worst case? Go.
Best case? I mean, best case, they get to like the conference finals. Like I think,
with Quick.
But that's what I mean. Best case
that would be Quick. Well, I'm saying best case is they get to the conference final, maybe further with Quick. Blueger's a penalty killer that matters.
They won't get to the finals, though.
And Barbashev scores goals, right?
I think Blueger's got to be in the lineup every night. Barbashev has to injure somebody with a hit and score 5 goals minimum in playoffs. And Quick needs 3 shutouts in the first round. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say, hold on.
So here it is in the. Okay, hold on in the comments real quick. Here's Brandon put a devil's advocate. Quick went to a game 7 in the playoffs last year. I already addressed this. You must have come into the conversation late here, Brandon.
Damn it, Brandon.
I promise I'm not picking on you, Brandon.
Calling out Brandon.
I covered that series. I was in the building for game 3 of that series where Quick allowed 7 goals. Okay. Like he got yanked one, he got allowed 7 in another, and it went to game 7 because LA just kept scoring. So, if this team gets out, honestly, if this team gets out of the first round, I think it's a win. If they get past the second round, I think it's a big win for this club with the talent level they have, being Cassidy's first year. Yeah.
Chris just said it right there in the comments. Best case scenario is Quick pushes Hill to be the starter. And so Hill's so much better, but Quick plays well, but Hill's better and he becomes the starter.
Or Thompson or Brossoit.
Or Thompson, right. I just don't. Again, I'm one of those. I love Jonathan Quick. I love that he's an American goaltender. He's got 2 cups. If you were to give me a vote, I'd put him in the Hall of Fame.
He's a Hall of Famer. He's 100% a hockey Hall of Famer. Absolutely. And
I just don't like the situation he's in right now. I
agree with you.
Yeah.
And I hated that LA traded him.
Me too.
Is worst case scenario Quick plays and loses, Blueger's a healthy scratch, and Barbashev's a non-factor?
Sounds like a pretty terrible situation.
I would say, yeah, that would be that would not be good. Yeah. Blueger can't be
is that realistic?
I don't think Blueger's going to be a healthy scratch, considering he's been a lineup player for this long, and there's players that aren't. I mean, you're not going to put Brett Howden and Keegan Kolesar in a lineup over Teddy Blueger.
Can I explain why I think that might happen? Blueger's played in the same system his entire life so far in the NHL. I think it's not that easy to come in as a center in this system. I think one mistake could potentially be the difference between a game 3 or a game 4, that he made that mistake in a situation and he just looks down his bench and says, you know what? Brett Howden hasn't made that mistake since the last time I remember, and they just go down that road instead. I think it's possible he doesn't pick up the system as quickly.
He does like Brett Howden, even though there hasn't been a whole lot.
He drives the net and whatever. I think it's possible.
But
I'm not saying it's the
Teddy
favorite.
Blueger, Teddy Blueger's 28 years old. Teddy Blueger's 28 years old. So that carries some cash there.
To go along, though, Ken, with your theory, I mean, how many times have they made a deadline deal and that guy has been scratched? I mean, you start with Tatar, you start with Cousins, you start with, I think, Janmark. Was he a healthy scratch in the playoffs at all?
I don't think he was. He was hurt at one point. I would say it's mostly Tatar and Cousins. Reeves, but he was actually, that was a deal that they actually got a pick. So that wasn't, they weren't trying to get better with that player. And
Cousins was the one that was kind of, he was in and out, and
yeah, and that could very well be Blueger. I doubt it, but
Cousins was kind of that typical. It was that same type of deal where it was like, we can get him, we might as well. And Nick Cousins is a really effective player. Actually, I would have liked to have seen him utilized more, but the problem is that he just didn't accomplish a lot when he was in the lineup for Vegas when they had him. You know, so it was a little bit on both sides. I don't think he was put in a position to really succeed. And then when he had a chance, he really didn't grasp it. So who are you going to blame? It's one of those that just kind of didn't work.
It sounds like Tatar, exactly what you said.
Yeah, but I think a full season of Nick Cousins could have worked. I don't.
Like that could be Barbashev. That could be Blueger. It could be either of them. Are they not put in the right situation? The situation obviously makes sense the day you make the trade, because you say this is what he is. This is the position we're going to put him in. That's the plan. It very well may not work. I don't know. I just don't think one way or the other. I don't see there being a likely scenario one way or the other that this deadline has a huge impact. I really don't. What are you laughing at over there?
God damn it. Angela Wilson, who I
was just going to say, I love her. I love her.
By God, that's Mark Stone's music. Like, that's a direct Jim Ross reference of formerly WWE fame as a ring announcer, now AEW, as he would say AEW, because he's from Oklahoma. If I could have anybody announce narrate my life, it would be Jim Ross.
I'm working on
it. He running like a scalded dog. This is amazing. I'm going
to make that happen.
That is best case scenario, by the way. Angela does have the best case scenario. All these deals wouldn't matter. They would be fine. But as long as Mark Stone comes back, that's the best case scenario.
Dude,
right there.
That would be
smart.
That's amazing.
If Mark Stone comes back and you get healthy Mark Stone, you're going to sit here and wish that you had bought someone better than Teddy Blueger for your third round pick. Like that's where it just confuses me. All right, we need to get out of here. The glass has shattered. I know that reference too. I'm not a WWE guy, but I know the reference nonetheless. This show is over. Tomorrow is the deadline. We'll be back if there's anything that happens. Obviously, I'll do a Periscope if anything good happens. Mike, what are you up to tomorrow for deadline day?
So on Daily Faceoff, we will be live streaming on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube for Daily Faceoff from noon Eastern time until 4 p.m. So in Vegas, we'll be on from 9 a.m. until 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. But we do not have any geotags, so everybody in Canada can watch us. We go straight 4 hours. There's no ads, anything. Yes, I am wearing an Indianapolis Motor Speedway shirt because I love IndyCar as much. And by the way, IndyCar starts their season this weekend, which I am so excited about, at the streets of St. Petersburg in Florida. But the folks out there want a story, and I'm willing to oblige with that because this has become something of a tradition. And tomorrow I will be joined on the Daily Faceoff Trade Deadline show by the one and only Jay Rosehill. Now, Rosie and I played together for the Norfolk Admirals years ago, and
great logo, by the way.
That fateful evening where I nearly went to jail dressed as the Macho Man Randy Savage in a case of mistaken identity when they were looking for Hulk Hogan, Jay Rosehill was dressed as a Hooters girl. And Rosie is one of the greatest teammates I had, one of the most entertaining teammates I had. He stole a car once from a stripper in Binghamton. And he got all, and it's documented.
He wasn't good influence on you, Mike.
He's awesome. I encourage you to watch the show tomorrow. But my favorite story involved not trade deadline, but me being called up to the NHL. And so I get called up to the NHL with the Tampa Bay Lightning from the Norfolk Admirals, and it's February 1st. I've never played in the NHL before. I've never had an NHL contract, but I was on an American League deal. And we are at a Super Bowl party in Norfolk, in Virginia Beach, which is right outside Norfolk, Virginia. And I'll never forget it because I start driving out of there to go get my stuff to be called up to the NHL. I got to go pack a bag. And Rosehill is in a limo because they were going from Norfolk out to Virginia Beach. He's in a limo. He's hanging out the sunroof of the limo. And he calls to me. He sees me and he goes, and he's one of the few guys on earth I can let people call Mike. I let him call me Mikey. I hate being called Mikey. He says it. I just don't care. And he goes, Mikey, go get him, you motherfucker. And he's hanging out the roof of a limo, right? Like, I don't think he even had a shirt on. And he's screaming at me as my first recall to the NHL. And that was my enduring.
And you went and got him.
Being there. And
you went and got him. I got this card. You did it. You went.
Jay Rosehill is one of the funniest guys I've ever played with. He's an awesome guy. He's got amazing stories, but he also, of course, played in the NHL and has great insight. So we're gonna have a lot of fun on that show tomorrow. And I'm not sure how much is going to be left with given how much has taken place already.
It's going to be tough.
You
know?
know?
But I will tell you
announcement should be coming out. They said about an hour after the game, so that should be off the board for tomorrow.
I will tell you this. Tomorrow, Mikey, go get a motherfucker. Good night.
I really